Hi, welcome to another episode of Rocky Mountain Ranch Research with me, Katie Paige. This is part 3 of the new series where I'm going through all the original documents from the Rocky Mountain Ranch. I hope you guys are enjoying this new segment, and the best way you can support the work that I'm doing is just by giving me a thumbs up. It's quick, painless, simple. It just takes 2 seconds. And if you haven't already, if you could please subscribe to the channel. It's free to do that and it helps a lot. So thank you in advance. Um, I'm continuing the briefing document, Multiple Phenomena on a Colorado Ranch, and we're just going to dive into it. Before we get started, though, on part 2, I learned that in the documents they were claiming that they were coal mines in the area, specifically on the ranch. So I did a little digging on that, and I wanted to share some of my results. And in fact, I believe we have debunked debunked, debunked, debunked the hum sounds. I found this really interesting. I wanted to share this with you guys first. So, history of coal mining in Elbert County, Colorado. Coal mining in Elbert County was limited, small scale, and short lived, especially when compared to major Colorado coal regions. Still, coal played a minor but important local role from the late 1800s to the early 1900s. So basically, it says coal exploration in Elbert County began during Colorado's broader territorial and early statehood period, roughly 1800 to 1915. Small coal seams were identified primarily in the western and northwestern portions of the county, closer to the Denver Basin. These seams were thin and discontinuous, not suitable for large commercial operations. Most mining consisted of shallow shafts, drift mines, or surface pits. Purpose of the mining: coal in Elbert County was not mined for export. Instead, it was used locally for home heating, ranch and farm operations, small local businesses, and blacksmithing. But here's where it gets interesting to me. It says by the 1920s, coal mining in Elbert County had largely ended due to competition from higher quality coal elsewhere, expansion of rail delivered coal from southern Colorado, increasing use of electricity and other fuels, and poor economics and small local seams. But then it goes on to, I'm going to skip all this stuff. Skip all this. So I asked, um, why unusual sounds or vibrations matter in ranch history. It says that shallow coal seams and old workings. In areas with shallow coal seams, even small abandoned workings can create subsurface voids. These voids can act like acoustic chambers. Common effects include low frequency humming or droning. Exactly what we would hear out there. Sounds that seem to come from inside walls or floors. Vibrations that are felt more than heard. No clear surface source. Because these seams were often poorly documented, later landowners had no idea they were living above disturbed ground. So it says Elbert County sits within the Denver Basin, which includes layers of clay, sandstone, coal, and shale. Certain combinations of these materials can transmit vibration extremely well, especially at night when background noises drops. Sources that can trigger resonance. And listen to this: wind moving across open plains or open prairies, just like out there. Temperature shifts after sunset. They mentioned that in the report. Distant machinery or rail activity miles away. And there were railroad tracks miles away. So are these acoustic chambers? That's what the vibration and the droning is. Power lines and electrical grounding. The results can be a persistent hum that seems localized to a house or specific room. Wow. So it says many ranch homes were wired gradually, often by the owners themselves, just like in the report. When electricity was added later to older structures, grounding was sometimes improvised, incomplete, and routed through metal plumbing, wells, or fence lines. This can create audible buzzing, vibrations in walls and floors, changes in sound when breakers are flipped, sounds that stop when power is cut, then resume. Historical accounts of people shutting off breakers or even disconnecting poles entirely are very telling from a technical standpoint. Wells, wind, and water tables. Wells and underground water movement can also produce sound. When wind passes over well openings, old capped shafts, or buried pipes, it can create a whistling or humming effect similar to blowing across a bottle. You know, we've all done that. Anyway, okay. Seasonal water table changes can also cause shifting sounds, groaning or popping, vibrations that move through foundations. These sounds often appear suddenly and disappear just as suddenly. Why these sounds are so disturbing? Low frequency sound behaves differently than normal noise. It can be difficult to locate, travel through the bone and the tissue, cause unease, anxiety, or physical discomfort, feel like pressure rather than sound. This is why historical witnesses often describe the experience emotionally rather than acoustically. Isn't that interesting? They knew something was wrong, but could not point to a source. I find that is so interesting. And then it goes on to say why ranches are especially affected. Ranches combine several risk factors: large open land areas, older buildings, shallow subsurface disturbances, and minimal ambient noise at night. A sound that would be ignored in town becomes overwhelming in rural settings. So there you go. I think we've debunked the humming sounds out there. I don't think it had anything to do with any of the paranormal things, any of the UFO sightings, any of the light anomalies or orbs flying off or the animal mutilations. I think that was just something that added to the creepiness of it all, really. I mean, all this other stuff's going on. And then on top of that, when the wind's going, and very specifically, they say, which to me also lends credibility to the report itself, because the witnesses were just reporting what they felt was going on. And they very clearly stated in the report that when the wind would pick up, these hums would pick up. Makes sense. So there we go. Debunk that. All right. So now let's continue on with the documents, with the briefing document. We're just going to go ahead and jump right on in here. We stopped at 5, so we're going to start with 6. Chased by dark shape. Jim, John Duke, the photographer, asked if he could come out the next weekend and bring a friend, Harry, with him. These two and Steve, who worked with us, I don't know who Steve and Harry are. They never gave last names, so I was unable to track these people down, which is pretty unfortunate because they seem to be around quite a bit and have photographs. But anyway, okay. These two and Steve, who worked for us, were standing in front of a log cabin about 10 o'clock at night when they heard a strange noise coming from the cistern, which is southeast from the house and about 60 yards up the slope in the direction of the burn spot. Interesting, they call it a burn spot. And I'll put a picture here of the cistern and of that little log cabin that was there. And I do believe it had these doors, like a lower door and an upper door. And sometimes the upper door would be open and the lower door would be closed. And I could swear I remember seeing tall, dark shapes on the other side of that door. It was pretty unnerving. So anyway, that's what they're talking about, and I'll include pictures of that. All of a sudden, after listening to this noise, a huge dark object pushed its way through the barbed wire and came straight at them down the hill. They all came running into the house. I went running out right away to catch whatever it was, and then I thought they were putting me on. We subsequently went back and traced the route, and sure enough, there were footprints. I removed some of the hair from the fence, noticing that my sister and I found long hairs in the barbed wire fence when we were shooting out there for season 3 for Beyond Skinwalker, and we bagged it, tagged it, gave it to the producers, and they had it tested. And of course, it came back as horse, I believe, horsehair. And they don't have horse on there, but it must have been left over from something. So that was like a womp, womp, womp moment. I thought maybe we had Bigfoot hair. Okay, so anyway, let's continue. I removed some of the hair from the fence, noticing that it had just pushed its way through the barbed wire fence. It didn't jump the fence, but just by force alone spread it and went through. There were long strands of hair. I collected the hair and got photographs of the footprints coming to the house. By that time, I was getting more and more upset about the activities that were building up continuously over a period of time. I spent some of the, I sent some of the hairs down to Denver to a biogeneticist for examination. His report later was no known species. Interesting. By then, I was collecting books and discovered that other people had sent in hair and nothing ever came of it. And one law officer was encouraging me to keep my mouth shut about it because he didn't want a full scale panic in the county. I told him I wasn't interested in panics. I was interested in finding out who was mutilating my cattle. Reasonable. Okay, number 7. Disc cruises by house. Barbara, Betty. It got very heavy after that. The closest you can define it is an emotional attack of some kind. Everyone everyone went into absolute feelings of fear and depression with no stimulant. I have very tractable children. It is amazing how well they get along, but everyone was fighting with everyone. Just a lot of little paranoid incidents, one after the other. And I do remember that. It was intense. It was uncomfortable. Um, just a really weird 3 years of my life. Uh, anyway, next issue, communication, harassment, and chases. So we go into part 3. Jim, John Duke. By this time, I was sleeping on the couch in front of the door with a gun and staying awake most of the night to catch whoever it was. I was beginning to suspect that somehow the real estate man was involved in it, that he was trying to make us break up the contract so he could resell the land. I was lying on the couch about 2 a.m. There was a humming noise again, so the wind maybe was running through those caverns, and I raised up and looked out the window. What's interesting about this is, so here we have this unease, this tension in the house, all these weird things going on. They connect the humming noise to it, so it gets your attention. You're laying there on the couch, you're armed, you're already paranoid, and that hum starts, which is a natural, probably, phenomena. But what it does is it makes you alert. So now you're paying attention to everything else that's going on. So that makes sense. Um, okay, so there was a humming noise again, and I raised up and looked out the window. The disc came out of the north across our property very slowly, right in front of the front windows, and went up the gully past the whole front of the house. Barbara. Betty. I did not see the disc. What I saw was the glow from the disc. My bedroom was on the other extreme of the house, and I could see a glow over a slight hump. I screamed, and Jim came running to tell me what he had seen. What's interesting about that is Greg, in that same area of the house, he now has an addition out there, and they put in a couple skylights. And that is the same area of the house where me, my sister, and the boys saw that bright light out of the window and all that was going on when the power went out and that electronic voice. But in that same room, Greg twice had these bright lights come down. Not a helicopter, no sound. I mean, unexplainable bright lights out there in that same area. So, this also has a connection to something that's been reported now, even so, it's interesting. 8. Friend's car chased by disc. Jim, again, John Duke. By then I was getting a little more upset and I went into town. 2 of our best friends owned the restaurant and we sat down and we talked to them about it. They then opened up and told us about the property and some of the unusual occurrences. They told us about the people down the road who had just moved into the county and had mentioned an incident just prior to that. Prior to our moving out there, their cousin and nephew were going down the road past our property. A disc allegedly came off our property. It wasn't ours at the time and followed the car. This has been reported in the San Luis Valley as well, being chased by discs, cars being just chased by discs. So that's kind of an interesting phenomenon back in the day. They went down the road, turned the corner, and pulled into their house. They ran inside, and while all of the people in the house watched, the disc hovered over the car for approximately 45 minutes. What? I mean, okay. Later, she went into town and talked about it. After hearing this, I went back to the law officer and apologized. I had to eat crow over the fact eat crow. I had to eat crow over the fact that there were obviously was something going on. We subsequently patched up the friendship and I think we are so friends now, meaning him and the police officer, probably who they're talking about is Bill Waugh. So Barbara, Betty, he had been very supportive in coming out to help when we have had problems, meaning Bill Waugh. Jim. And he moved out there by us shortly thereafter and told me that he, frankly, was quite scared, but that it was his duty. He didn't feel that he could do anything, but that if we needed him, he would come. This made us feel a little bit better. So they did actually, in talking to Jean and Keith, their one house was on the one end of town, but then they moved closer to the ranch property. So that is true and that is verified. So number 9. And I think that's important. The more little tidbits we can verify throughout these reports, the more credibility the reports have. So, number 9, neighbor has seen lights for years. Jim, we found out that there was a crazy lady. We found out that there was a crazy lady in the county. I apologize. I didn't say it. Don't shoot the messenger. We had heard a lot of stories of her calling the law officers with stories of lights over our property before we moved in. So, okay. Number 10. We'll go through 10 and then we'll stop. 10. Apparent harassment by hairy creature. Jim. John Duke. During this time, I felt that something was trying to scare us away. We heard a slamming noise and I went out to our car, but it didn't see anything. Then I saw the trunk light on the dash of the Cadillac. The trunk was locked. I opened it and saw that the pin switch had been bent over to the side. Something had opened and closed the trunk and bent it when only I had the key. Okay, so right now we are working with a family in the Black Forest, which is very near the Rocky Mountain Ranch, that is having strange anomalies with their vehicles, trunks opening, things like that. So this, again, is another thing that is still occurring out there now. So interesting. I again filed that away as something unusual, something that would continuously come up and beat on the sides of the house twice and run, just like Halloween. Again, I decided it was the real estate man. That seems pretty extreme. Like somebody's taking their time to just go harass somebody to get, like, that doesn't make sense to me. And that was another thing, I always thought, well, if it's military doing black access project and the land sat vacant for 7 to 12 years, why wouldn't they just purchase the land unless I'm not going to do the air quotes, unless John Duke had something to do with what was happening out there. Anyway, again, I decided it was the real estate man. I went down and talked to the law officer again. He requested that I not shoot anything. Yeah, don't shoot anything. Oh my God. He was afraid that whatever it was could shoot back harder and much more undesirably than I could. So it continued progressively for some time after that, beating on the walls and running. I would run out and I would see a big hairy thing running. I was tolerating it to a certain degree. One night, I didn't. I went out and one was running beside the corral and I shot it. He shot it. Barbara came running out, and when Harry and Roger came back from town, we went tracking to see if we could find what I had shot. It didn't seem to hurt it at all. There was a little flinch. I'm a good shot, so I know I hit it. There was no blood, no traces, no signs. We pursued it onto the property next to us. Then I heard this most unusual sound. They said it was like a double sound. It was a whine with an almost beeping noise intermixed. That's an interesting description. A whine with a beeping noise, almost mechanical. Could Bigfoot be mechanical? Anyway, the closest sound I can think to describe it is the South American primate of some type. Some people said it sounded mechanical. It didn't to me. And we roamed around looking, but didn't find anything except we seemed to be led in a certain direction. Let's see. Oh, that's kind of blurred out. We didn't find anything. We returned to the house and I notified the law officer that I had shot one. He gave me hell and told me I was lucky this time and he didn't want anybody killed. And that's a good tip. All right. So we will continue with number 11 tomorrow. I hope you guys are enjoying this briefing document. It's quite interesting and we're learning some things along the way and I like that. So thanks again. I hope you guys all have a great day and we'll see you next time.